Hamjambo Totos, Karibu. These are Swahili words of greeting, meaning, hello children, welcome. This is the language heard most in East Africa, a land of many races and ways of life. The people who live in the flatlands tend herds of animals. The people who live along the mountain slopes are farmers. But in the cities along the East Coast, there are merchants, and life is similar to city life anywhere in the world. In the city and in the country, the tales and fables that were handed down years ago before anyone could read or write are still told. They are told in the evenings after sunset. The Swahili say, akili yapita male, which means wisdom is better than wealth. And where better to find wisdom than in folk tales that have their origin in peoples from many places. Stories of East Africa traveled from tribe to tribe long before there was a written language. Perhaps they were spread by traders or by a traveling storyteller. Listen, hear the storyteller's call. Listen, hear his call. Come, come, come listen to the time when the rabbit and elephant were the best of friends. Come listen and learn. A long, long time ago, a rabbit lived in Africa by the name of Wakaima. Now he was very, very lazy. His best friend was a big elephant whose name was Wanjovu. They both lived together on a farm. Wanjovu the elephant worked very, very hard, and Wakaima the rabbit was very lazy and did not work at all. Now Wanjovu got tired of living with a lazy rabbit, so one day he said, "I've got a great idea. Let's each have our own farm and we can share what we grow." Wakaima agreed. They each selected a piece of land. Wanjovu worked his soil and planted seed. But instead of working on his farm, lazy Wakaima ran off into the jungle and spent the day eating wild fruit and sleeping under the trees. When evening came, Wakaima rubbed dirt over his paws and face and stumbled into the house, groaning, rubbing his back and saying, "Oh, how hard I've worked. Oh, how tired I am." Wanjovu was a good gardener and a hard worker. He planted corn, potatoes, peas, and many other vegetables. When evening came, he was really tired, but he never complained. One night, Wakaima crawled into the house with a stick or two for the fire. His paws and face were covered with dirt. "How tired I am. The work has been so hard today. I have worked all day without stopping." Wanjovu believed him and prepared dinner for both of them while Wakaima washed his paws and face before eating. Now one evening, as they sat down to the dinner that Wanjovu had cooked, the elephant said, "Wakaima, you work much too hard on your farm." The lazy Wakaima shook his head. Then he said, "We can never work too hard. We must have plenty of food to store away before the rains come." After many weeks passed, the crops were ready. The time had come to gather in the harvest. One evening, Wanjovu came home with a large basket filled with beautiful big ears of corn and fine white potatoes. He cooked them very carefully, and he and Wakaima sat down to eat. How good the corn is, how sweet," said Wakaima. "I have never eaten finer potatoes." The next evening, Wakaima came in with a basket full of corn and potatoes and said, "These are probably not as good as yours, but we will try them." Wanjovu thought they looked very much like the corn and potatoes from his own garden, but he said nothing, knowing he would have to cook them and they would eat them for dinner. The next morning, when Wanjovu went to his farm, he saw that someone had stolen some of his corn and potatoes. That evening, he told Wakaima,
Someone got into my farm last night and stole some of my vegetables.
Wakaima pretended to be very surprised. Some thief got into my farm, too, he said. What are we going to do about it? Now, we all know that Wakaima had stolen the vegetables from Wanjovu because he had no vegetables in his own garden.
We must do something to keep the thief away, Wanjovu answered. I will think of something and come up with a plan.
But he did not tell his plan to Wakaima. The next day, Wanjovu went to the river and got some clay. He worked all day and made a clay man with his arms outstretched. Carefully, he carried the clay man to his farm and set it down between the corn and potatoes. Later, when the moon rose, there stood the clay man, and there was his dark shadow, black in the white moonlight. Now, when Wanjovu had been asleep for many hours, Wakaima sneaked into Wanjovu's potato patch. Suddenly, Wakaima saw a giant figure in the moonlight, and he was frightened. Could it be Wanjovu, waiting to punish him for stealing the corn and potatoes? He didn't dare move. The clay man didn't move. Finally, Wakaima gathered his courage to speak. "Hello, Wanjovu," he said. "What are you doing here at this time of the night?" The clay man did not answer. Wakaima began to lose his temper. "You are a thief who has come to steal Wanjovu's corn. Answer me or I will tell him." The clay man did not answer. Wakaima came nearer. He was puzzled. "Who are you, and why don't you answer?" he demanded. The clay man did not answer. Wakaima cautiously walked around the clay man, who looked very, very large in the moonlight. "If you don't answer me right now, I will hit you," shouted Wakaima. The clay man still did not answer. Wakaima hit the clay man hard with his paw, and it stuck in the soft clay. "Let me go, or I'll hit you with my other paw," he screamed. The clay man did not let go. Wakaima, with his other paw, punched the clay man in the stomach as hard as he could. This paw also stuck in the soft clay. "If you don't let me go," shouted Wakaima, "I will kick you with my foot." Still, the clay man did not let go. Wakaima raised his foot and kicked the clay man. His foot stuck in the soft clay. He tried to pull his foot away, but it was stuck fast in the clay. Now Wakaima was very angry and tired. He lifted his other foot and kicked the clay man with all his strength, and that foot also stuck in the clay. "I will bite you in the stomach with my sharp teeth unless you let me go," screamed Wakaima. When the clay man did not let go, Wakaima butted his head against the clay man and sank his long, sharp teeth into the clay. Now his head was stuck, too. His feet and paws were held tightly, and he couldn't move at all. He was stuck in the trap of the clay man. Now the next morning, as dawn broke slowly in the east, the sun came up and the birds sang their morning songs. Wanjovu rose early and went to his farm to see if the clay man had trapped the thief. Sure enough, he found Wakaima stuck in the clay man.
"You wicked fellow!" he thundered. "So you are the thief who stole my food. You have your own farm, but it was easier for you to steal my corn and my potatoes than to grow your own. What a lazy, good-for-nothing rabbit you are. Now I'm going to punish you."
He pulled Wakaima free of the clay man. Poor Wakaima, he looked so ashamed and frightened. Wanjovu could not help feeling a little sorry for him.
going to do with me?" sobbed Wakaima. Wanjovu thought for a long time. Finally, he said, "I really should eat you. You have eaten my crops, so I should eat you. And you didn't tell me the truth. You pretended to have your own garden." "But you can't eat me alive," pleaded Wakaima. "I will have to be dead before you can eat me."
What do you want me to do?
Wanjovu asked. He was not really happy about eating Wakaima. "Throw me into the trees," Wakaima said. "Throw me very high among the branches. By the time I hit the ground, I will be dead, and then you can eat me." Wanjovu swung Wakaima around and around over his head, and finally threw him high among the branches of the trees. But when Wakaima hit the ground, he was not dead. He wasn't even hurt. That rabbit landed lightly on his feet and ran off into the jungle laughing. He had really fooled Wanjovu. Wanjovu knew he could not catch Wakaima, so he went back to his farm. Since that time, Wanjovu the elephant and Wakaima the rabbit have not spoken to one another.
Akili yapita male. In Swahili, this means wisdom is better than wealth. And where better to find wisdom than in folk tales that have their origins in the people from many places? Go and read. Read and share the tales of East Africa.